It's Alissa Coram, and this week my guest is a favorite. It's Irusha Peiris. He is portfolio manager at O'Neill Global Advisors. Irusha, it's always great to see you. It's been a little while since we've had a chat, so I'm glad we get to do this today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Ali.
All right. So there's a lot to get into, and really looking forward to getting your perspective. Let's dive right in. So, just really quickly, your thoughts on the action this week, a potential change in the tide. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it continues to be a classic bear market. You're a lot of volatility, and obviously earlier this week, volatility to downside, and then today, obviously, some volatility to the upside. And so a lot of times when I see these really big volatile updates, the first thing that comes in my head is we're still most likely in a bear market. But it's day number 2 of an attempted rally. Next week, we potentially could get a follow through day. And at that point, you look for something to buy and then let the market tell you.
All right. Well, we'll have to see. Okay. So now here's the fun part of Stock Tales. Well, the whole thing's fun, if I do say so myself, but it's kind of a rapid fire section where the audience gets to know you and I a little bit better. So, first, I know you got your Peloton bike. Was it before the pandemic, or during in the early days of the pandemic? When did you get your Peloton?
It was the early days of the pandemic. I just started riding like an exercise bike. I never really did. I was always doing ellipticals, but then I wanted to continue that, and I was about to buy a cheaper bike on Amazon, and they all sold out overnight. So then I was like, okay, let me try to get this Peloton. I was like, let me take the Peloton. I wasn't really interested in it, but it was like the only one, and they were going to deliver it. But then that was also like a month long. Once I actually bought it, it was a month long wait before they could deliver it.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was like, wow, they're getting a lot of demand. And so I went and bought the stock at that point. It was setting up at that time. So
Nice.
you can find some ideas. But it was pretty early on in the
Yeah.
pandemic. So I've had it for a couple of years. And luckily, because of it, I think I'm not 500 pounds because I haven't done anything but stay inside and look at stock charts for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I followed you, but I just got my bike about 2 months ago. So after all the hype, so I got mine within a week, and it was like free delivery and installation. So that was pretty cool. I did a lot of spin classes in college. So yeah, with all the work from home, why not gym from home too? So I have Peloton. So my question is, who's your favorite instructor?
My favorite instructor is well, I'm drawing a blank on her name. She's the lady from Britain. She's
Okay,
very
yeah. L
what?
Leanne?
No, I'm
No?
totally drawing a blank on her name. Yeah, Leanne Hainsby.
Yes,
She's
there we
excellent.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, she's one of the most popular ones. But I think she's fun. She plays. I like the music that she plays a lot, and I'm always a sucker for the English accent too.
I love it. I took her ABBA ride. That was the first ride that I ever did, and yeah, just had so much fun with that. But my favorite, I would say, is Kendall Toole. She went to USC, and
Everyone likes her.
yeah,
I tried one of her classes one time, and she destroyed me.
yeah, and she'll
So
give
she
you a
sounds like I
little
can't do it again.
like booty.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of fun there. Anyway, so what's your favorite sports team? Because I know you and Justin have done fantasy football together. You're a big
Yeah.
sports guy. What's your favorite team?
I'm gonna raise my camera right up there, and it's the Raiders. Well, NFL, the Raiders, and of course I went to USC, and they were my favorite team before when I was young too. But the Raiders, they've always been my favorite team for the longest time. I just went and toured their stadium a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty
Nice.
amazing, and did all like the Raider kind of stuff there. But a big Raider fan. We're already talking about, and some of us from IBD are actually talking about going to one of the games this upcoming year
Ah, have fun.
because the schedule just
Do
got
it.
released. So
Do
that,
it.
and then I'm also a Yankee fan, but I'm all about NFL and stuff like that these days.
I like it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I grew up in a house where we watched more college sports than
Mhm.
professional sports. I
Yeah.
mean, with my husband and I, we definitely, we'll watch NBA, NFL, that kind of thing. But I'm definitely a sucker for, college football and basketball. And I went to SMU, so pony up. We're like the ultimate underdog. But we're pretty good here and there. We have glimmers of hope, but I just can't help but root for them. And Bill O'Neill also went to SMU, so
Absolutely.
yeah, gotta root for the Mustangs.
Yeah,
Um,
no, for sure.
yeah. So speaking of Bill, and this doesn't necessarily have to be about Bill, but because you're no longer an IBD employee, Arusha.
I know, tear.
I know.
Or,
But
but you're no longer an employee of Bill.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, fine. Fine, Arusha, you win. What would you say is your favorite IBD memory?
My favorite IBD memory. Gosh, I mean there are a number of them, but honestly, one of the favorite ones is probably the pandemic when we kept hitting all the circuit breakers, and we just started IBD Live, and we were all sitting there. Chris Kessel's there, Justin. We're all just sitting there, and now it's like, okay, market stopped. What do we do? And we're just like sitting there talking about other stuff, and then I hit it again and that stuff. So, I mean, that's definitely one of the most favorite. I mean, there's so many just great memories, just especially with the marketsman team and when we came down with IBD, and that's when I got to know you because we were always upstairs. But um, it was just such a fun environment. Just so much energy there. There's 100+ people. It was really did have a startup feel, and we
Yeah,
were always coming up with ideas. I mean, you did with all the video stuff. We were doing all tons of stuff, trying different things on the marketsman side and
yeah,
webinar side. So I mean that whole time down there, it was like 5 years. I think we were down there.
yeah.
Uh, that whole thing is just one happy memory in many ways.
It's so true because yeah, it was such a collaborative environment and the camaraderie. You could just feel it. Just great people. I feel like when
Absolutely.
when you work with great people, it makes such a big difference. So yeah, every time we get to interview you, it still feels like you're part of the team. We just
Right.
and,
Right.
uh, you're just still one of us. But so always fun there. And I would say for me, this is something kind of unique since I did meet Bill when I was in college. When I started working at IBD, he was still coming into the office every day and he was in the newsroom. And actually, he had a window from his office into the newsroom. And I was like at the row of desks. So he could, like, we could just like look and kind of see each other, which was kind of cool. But I felt like I could, like, open door policy, that I could just go in his office and talk to him, and that was very cool for me. Hey Bill, I wrote my first front page story, take a look at it. And just would always keep him updated on what I was doing. So that was a very fun time. And he definitely had that belief in me, kind of rolled out the red carpet for
Yeah.
me when I was in college, giving me a tour of the place. So that was pretty special. But moving on, Arusha, now let's talk about another walk down memory lane, and that is the 2000 bear market. I mean, this was a very pivotal time in your trading career.
Yeah. It was at the very beginning of my trading career. I was out of college for a couple of years, and I started investing in the stock market. I didn't know anything about the stock market, but I was in the 99 dot-com boom, and so anything I bought was going up, and you couldn't lose money at that point. So naturally, I thought I was a genius at that time because I'd rolled the markets up. But then when 2000 came around, I still had no idea what was going on. Rode it right back down, and so that's what I'm sure a lot of people are going through right now
Mm,
in this type of market, because 2020 was very similar too. And I realized at that point was buying hold wasn't necessarily for me. Buying the dips, getting tips from people wasn't for me. And I think I just made there were a couple of things. I made a decision at that point to try to learn from this because I never really had any interest in stock market. But the other thing that I decided was I took a trial IBD maybe a couple of years before. I had no idea how to read the paper. It was much more technical at that point. It
mm,
was just a computer readout essentially. But what they did is they sent me a book, and I actually have it right here. But the 24 essential lessons for investment success. And they sent it in, I think, 98 or 99 or something like that. And
Is that your original copy? Or is it?
honestly, I'm not sure if this is the original copy. I have the original How to Make Money in Stocks book that
Oh,
Bill signed in 2002, and I have that, stored away.
mint
But
condition,
yeah, in mint, exactly, exactly.
like
And
the
he said
Declaration of Independence,
exact, well preserved. But it says in the book, you can do it. That's what Bill wrote in the book, and I believed him, and it's true. But for this book, like, I didn't read it. I had, but in 2000, after I got hit, I was like, wait, I think I have this book on the stock market somewhere. Found it in the bottom of my closet. It was still in the mailer, and so I opened it up, and once I opened it up, I didn't put it down. Like, I couldn't believe that someone could make the stock market so interesting. I'd never heard anyone talk about the stock market this way, and so this is the book that really kind of changed the course of my life, because all of a sudden it gave me an interest in the stock market. It gave me this belief that there is a kind of path, and there's a process that you can do. And it made sense because you're investing in growth companies and you have risk management, and I kind of appealed to, and I had a science background, and I started out as an engineer. I didn't last long there, but looking at charts kind of made sense. And so all that kind of stuff, it was a good fit, versus a lot of the other stuff. So that's when I started subscribing to IBD. I went to the seminar with Bill where he signed the book. And the rest is history at that point.
Yeah. So that experience when the dot-com bubble burst, and you felt that pain in your portfolio, it was really those lessons, and then seriously studying Can Slim, ripping open that random mailer. That's such a cool story. It has really set you on this path, but also you've been able to take those lessons, and so you can kind of, I'm exaggerating here, but kind of, kick back and relax in markets like this because you know how to handle them.
Well, but you never know that it's coming around. So I have the scars, and that's what I'm saying for those who are getting those scars right now. Make use of those. Learn from that, because you'll take it seriously when the stocks are selling off. When I started really trying to buy stocks using CanSlim in 2001, I didn't know we were in a bear market still and all this kind of stuff. But what I got very good at that point was cutting my losses, because everything was still going down. I was like, oh, here's a cup of the handle, let me buy it. And I had to cut losses. So I kept cutting losses, as opposed to the first few stocks that I bought using the system. I didn't cut the losses, like Skechers, and I think Student Loan was another one. I didn't cut, especially Skechers. I was up like 25% on it. You're supposed to sell when you're up 20%. I didn't do that. I wrote it down 8%. Didn't cut it there. And finally, once I was down like 70%, I was like, oh, that's why they have that 8%
Yeah.
stop loss rule. And so it took me a while to learn what
But
Bill was talking
you have
about.
to burn your hand on the stove,
You have to.
you have to
That's the
learn.
key. So now I have those kind of memories back there, and those scars, that when things go against me now,
You
I
take
don't
it
question
seriously.
it. Yeah, I just listen to the market. It's like, a lot of people you can talk yourself into staying into a stock for too long, because that's great fundamentals, a great story, all that kind of stuff. I'm to realize that once they're going against me, I just cut my losses. It could be me. Maybe it was a poor selection, poor timing, or it might be the market, but something's out of sync. I'm out of sync with the market. Let me cut my losses. Let me lick my wounds, and I can recover from a small loss versus those big losses.
It's so true. And so speaking of some of these, story stocks, or telling yourself that it's okay to stay in a stock that's trending lower because the story's there and the fundamentals are there. I mean, a big thing with the way that you invest is that it's not just the technicals. Those stories are important to you. You really are looking at the numbers and that fundamental story, and what kind of runway is this a game-changing company. So that is huge. But you also have to have sell rules, with those types of stocks, all stocks, but especially those that you can kind of get enamored with those game-changing qualities of them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a couple of years ago, or maybe it's a year and a half ago, we were on IBD Live, and I was talking about Corsair, and that was working, and I was like, oh, expensive keyboards and mice and esports is a huge trend and all that kind of stuff. And I tried it. I made money the first time, and I kept going back to it. Then all of a sudden, getting whipped around, and then finally, once I got burned too many times on it, I just just walked away from it, and it never gave me another chance. I mean, you have the chart right up there. Uh, never gave me another chance. It didn't set up. Or Unity. I was a huge fan of Unity, and it's a really interesting story. But yeah, and I bought it right near the top, and I was in it for probably around 140. And once it stopped working, once it broke that 50-day moving average on big volume, that's a showstopper for me. I sell, and once you start selling, and I get past those first few ones, because those first few sells 20 years ago, they would eat at me. I was like, oh, I can't believe I lost money, because that was my ego, right? You have to admit you're wrong. But once you get past that point, after selling a few times and you realize it's not that big a deal, selling, it's like I sell and I don't even think about it anymore. Like I forget about some of these stocks, but and then finally Shopify, which both had the story and it had the fundamentals, and it's really good business, right? I bought it right at the top there, and I've been in plenty of times during 2019, 2017 through 2021, but I bought it right there where you highlighted it, and then I got stopped out and just walked away, right? And it never in a million years would I've ever said that it would be down 77%, in the last like 7 months or so. That would be impossible to me. But in the end, anything's possible in the market. The market's always right, and you have to learn to listen to the market.
That's right. I mean, it's so much better to sell too soon and get shaken out of what turns out to be a big winner than to sell too late, and then you are sitting on these losses, and then you go to a not so great mental state. Well, if I sell now, I mean, it's just gonna bounce. There's no way it can head lower. Or you start thinking about taxes. Oh, and making excuses. So then you bring back in all of those emotions that the rules are helping us try to control.
Yeah. And there are getting shaken out is part of the game. That you brought up a very good point there. There are a number of times where I got shaken out of Shopify, right? And once it's set up again, I tried it again. And so you don't have to capture the whole move. You can if you want. I mean, there are different strategies, but I'm not always looking to capture the whole entire move. A lot of times I'm looking to capture that 20% or the 30 or 40, or sometimes when the markets are really strong, like in 2020. Now you're capturing like 100% because they're just so strong that you just keep letting them go. But there are plenty of times where I sell out of them and they go up without me. It's like almost guaranteed. Like once I sell them, it goes right up without me. But and I'm fine buying it higher, because in the end, I'm trying not to lose money. I'm trying to make money, and I do everything I can to avoid the portfolio destroying losses that we've seen over the last 6 months.
That's right. So whether it is a Shopify, a Corsair, a Unity, or an Upstart, which you still hear a lot about in the FinTwit sphere, it's great to be able to recognize what are those kind of game-changing companies. But just because it's a game-changing company, or could be, doesn't necessarily mean that at that time it is a game-changing growth stock for your portfolio.
Right. And just pull up Upstart for 1 second here. So Upstart, and I got into this one pretty late, but that first break back in December 21, that 253 earnings report, that gap down, I was in that, right? And that gap down 30% or so. And you feel like an idiot selling out at that point. And then of course it goes up without you. But you know what? Now I'm looking pretty good selling out at 300. Right? Even though I took like a 20% loss, at least I didn't take a 90% loss.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there are going to be, to me, in my experience, if you are mostly in the right stocks, there's going to be more times that you are like, whew, glad I got out of that one, than you are, with that regret of, oh, if only I would have held and not gotten shaken out, because you can have the opportunity to buy those ones back. So.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, Arusha, let's just end on a quick little pep talk for our audience, because there has been a lot of destruction out there, but it's always important to remain optimistic. I mean, you've been through a number of these cycles, and after all of this destruction, there are going to be some really great opportunities.
Yeah, this bear market's going to be is setting up the next great bull market. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you've got caught in this bear market, everyone gets caught in a bear market, right? So the most important thing is, what are you going to do about it so you can avoid the next one? Or is this something that fits your personality, writing down stocks so much, and then you just want to hold on to them for many, many years? And that's fine. You got to figure out what fits your personality the best. But the one thing is, and Ali, one thing you mentioned before, like when I started learning this 20 years ago, it wasn't necessarily like I was so serious at that point and learning it. I slowly accumulated this over time. I slowly learned the lessons over time. This was something I was doing a full-time job, and I was just learning this on the side, not spending a lot of time on it. But the ones who end up getting better and better at this, especially our system, are the ones who hang around the longest. So you learn to survive these really awful bear markets. You learn to thrive and get a little bit better at the bull markets, but you hang around. You
Yeah.
hang around long enough so you can participate in a 2020 type of year, which comes around so often, not too often. But there are plenty of other just normal kind of bull markets where you can just slowly grow your money and
Mhm.
then hold on to it when the markets are selling off like they are now.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly incredible. From the time that we started IBD Live in late 2019 to now, I just know how much that I've improved as a trader over just those couple of recent years. Not to mention, when I started at IBD in 2014. So yeah, it's great to have the community that we have. We're, talking with expert traders and really kind of feeding off of each other, and it's a very collaborative and great community that I'm so happy to be a part of. And yeah, lots of good stuff ahead. Always learning, always keep learning.
That's the most important thing. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Arusha. It was great to have you on. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Same for all of you watching. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you back here next week.